Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Galilea, and today we'll be covering tariffs and tensions, supply chains, and M&A in flux. We're excited to have you all join us this morning. I would like to thank our presenters, Mustafa Altuner and Robert Jackson, as well as our moderator, Dora Lanza, for sharing their knowledge with us today. Before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping items to cover. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. We will share the recording with you after this session so you can revisit the content whenever you would like. Additionally, any information presented today is for educational purposes only. It should not be considered as legal or financial advice. Please address any specific questions or concerns with qualified professionals in the respective field. Also, feel free to share your questions throughout the presentation. The presenters will do their best to address them as they come up. If we can't get to your question right away, no worries. We've set aside 15 minutes at the end of the webinar to answer any remaining questions you may have. And on that note, I will hand it over to Dora to start us off.
Well, thank you, Galilea. So this last few weeks feel like a roller coaster, upside down, being shaken. That's the sentiment we're hearing from most of the clients we're speaking with. And so we thought this would be a very appropriate subject to bring in experts and share some of their knowledge and their strategies to how they're navigating these tensions. So our panel will be looking at the challenges and the opportunities that businesses are facing as a result of these geopolitical and economic uncertainties that have been created due to the tariffs. We will be diving into the world of tariffs and their ripple effects on supply chains, the tensions that they are creating for business, and how they are reshaping the M&A world and acquisitions. And so I'd like to welcome our key presenters today. Mustafa Altuner, he is with Bonelli Logistics, and Robert Jackson from Shorehill Capital. Mustafa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning, everybody. I have been in business for some time, for a few decades, and then currently I have a partner, my wife, with at the drayage company. We're running a transportation company, and our company specifically pulls containers from the port. We import containers and export as well. And this business uniquely called drayage, as most of us know the term drayage, meaning drain a container from the port to a location B, whether client's warehouse or somewhere else, delivery location, destination. And I have been in this business for some nearly a decade, but I also have had the pleasure of enjoying a BCO position before this business, which is I was an importer of food products, which I've been in their shoes where my clients are right now. And over the years, over the decades, I've had these conversations, tariffs and tariffs this, tariffs that sometimes. But it turned out that tariffs did not happen as we are observing these days, lately, last couple of weeks. This is quite different than what we heard 10 years ago, quite different what we witnessed maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Definitely different. We never had this big impact in tariffs and still don't know where we're going actually. So that's all for me for now. And then I kind of pretty much put it together in a few words where I've been last 35 years maybe.
So to our audience, as you can see, Mustafa brings a world of knowledge and experience to this conversation. And along with Robert, tell us about yourself with Shorehill Capital.
Yeah, thanks, Doris. So, managing director here at Shorehill. We're based in Chicago. We're a lower middle market industrial private equity firm. We have a $260 million fund that we're investing out of, and 6 current platforms under management, along with 2 that we've exited in the past. And I joined in 2015 as an associate here, and currently lead 2 of our investments, SX Manufacturing and Ascent Lifting. Ascent's an industrial distributor of rigging and crane components. They serve a lot of ports, marines, a lot of river activity, and then industrial and construction sites. And SX is a manufacturer of safety apparel. So a lot of what we do is on the manufacturing side is assembly or fabrication with the design and engineering in-house, and then distribution and industrial services are the other 2 markets that we focus on, with enterprises ranging up to kind of $150 million of transaction size. And that generally translates to about 2 million of EBITDA, all the way up to about 15 million of EBITDA for us. And that's where we play. So we've been at it a long time. I have 2 partners that have been investing since the late 80s, early 90s. And so we bring a long track record across a lot of cycles and a lot of environments. Fortunately, amongst the group, we've seen a lot, and bring that to bear in our portfolio. So.
Well, thank you. And I'm Dora Lanza. I'm your host for today's presentation. I'm also the co-founder of Plethora Businesses. Our company is dedicated to helping business owners either sell, merge, or grow through acquisitions. We've been in business since 1998 and consistently rank in the top 20 in the US. So we're very proud of our standing in this industry. So let's get started. So while tariffs create strategic tensions at the macro level, they also translate into real operational challenges on the ground. So Mustafa, how do these tensions impact your ability to deliver on time? And what strategies do you see and you're using to manage client expectations during this period of change?
Our first concern is not how to deliver, to tell you the truth, because we've had a lot of training, so to speak, during pandemic and post-pandemic. So while when you experience this periods, and you really know how to put teams and how to schedule your fleet and trucks and drivers. So we are able to manage through. One thing we're seeing sometimes series and blocks of loads coming on same vessel. And then we can talk about it a little later, but that could be a result of collecting all the loads on one vessel and shipping it here instead of this coming separate vessels. And that's a little different subject or different chapter in a little bit later. But at the time, at the present time, we are able to manage pickup and deliveries. But what's coming in, the volume is more concerning to us. And we're watching that carefully and very closely, and what's happening everyday basis.
So you're seeing a
Cargo volume.
change in the volume of what's coming in?
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, yes. We didn't have, we were busy. We had a busy, let's say, last quarter of 24 and first quarter of 25, definitely busy period. And it's still busy because already shipped materials, most of them on the water, arriving, approaching West Coast or East Coast. But nowadays, especially last few weeks, we are seeing some drop in the cargo volume.
Okay.
And that's pretty visible now. I can't say anymore that same rush is continuing, because rush was the result of trying to beat the tariffs before they are being official. Let's bring our product, get in the warehouse, clear it, and get in the warehouse. But now it's a little late for that, and I think due to that problem issue, we are having volume drop for sure, and I was just made aware, and also reading something else this morning. Blank shippings went up from 60,000 to 368,000. So that's huge. So that means either those were diverted somewhere else or canceled, but I'm afraid they were canceled.
Wow. So it's something that's certainly disturbing
Very.
our entire economy. Are you seeing the increase in cost for clients? Are you seeing tighter margins? How are small players struggling to compete?
Again, we're a logistic company. We're just not saying, oh, we're transportation truckers. Let's not worry about anything else. We're talking to our clients, and then we want to know what specific issues and problems they're having, and those are mostly cost, and then some of them they're still navigating through because of uncertainty of the tariffs on their product and the origin they're coming from. So they're not going to have issues for another 90 days. But as we all know that we have this 90 days period, we're going through that, and 10% tariff may move either way. That we don't know what's going to happen, whether it's going to be 40, 50, or back down to 5. We don't know. So as far as your question going, we are talking to our clients, and then unfortunately, they're not able to give us firm answers. But they're thinking fast.
Right.
What do we do? Now, this could cause market shifts, right? If I have a XYZ tariffs from here, maybe I can go to another origin where I don't have XYZ, I only have X. So this talk's already on the table. What I hear, not necessarily is going to happen, but owners and product owners and importers have to be ready for any one of the above.
So they're having to rethink some of these strategies. I mean, Robert, maybe you can weigh in on some of that. I mean, some of your portfolio companies are experiencing the effects of this.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying not to react too quickly at this point. We're more focused on, assessing what potential impact will be to our, cost of goods sold and what we're bringing in. And, there is conversations around, deferring some, trying to work out of our inventory. I mean, a lot of our distributors and manufacturers carry a fair amount of inventory. So is this an opportunity to, lean into that inventory some more and bring levels down, and try to really, make sure that we have the right, while this waiting period's happening. But I wouldn't say any of our portfolio companies have changed their purchasing patterns, nor have we seen a change in demand patterns. Now, we're all industrial, so we don't have the more quicker moving kind of consumer behaviors in our portfolio. But on the industrial side, so far, there hasn't been a shock to the system, I'd say, but everybody's trying to assess what is the impact going to be, and what do we need to do to offset that impact. And some of it is just figuring out, what it actually means. I mean, understanding the different codes and how it apply, and they call them the harmonizing codes, your product codes, and what you're bringing in, and what falls under is complicated enough. So our teams are definitely being challenged with all of that information.
Yeah, and creativity always comes to the surface when there are challenges, and people will always find solutions and seem to find solutions. Can you speak to boundary zones that have been created to address some of these challenges?
Mustafa may have a better answer there. We haven't done anything creative like that. I mean, we're not moving enough volume, I think, to really have those strategies at our fingertips to, like, for instance, one of our companies, we bring in about 300 containers a year. So it is a fair amount, but it's not at a volume where, we have kind of the global capacity to figure out where warehouses are and maneuver like a Walmart may, or
Mhm.
some others that are maybe more focused on that strategy. So, unfortunately, our creativity is kind of two prongs. It's what are we doing in our purchasing behaviors and our inventory, and then, price to the market is really where we're focused now, is making sure that, we don't lose margin in the process of what's happening here, and trying to pass that through to the
Yeah.
customers.
Well, some of the clients that we work with have been exposed to those boundary zones. And what they're actually doing is, instead of shipping product directly from China, let's say, to the US, product is being diverted either through Vietnam or other countries. But Mustafa, you made a point the other day in some conversation that product has a DNA. Can you expand on that?
Well, yes. When last time tariffs was on the table, BCO went to his supplier and said, "Well, I need a break." So they figured out uh, some little discount, so to speak, and then they were happy, and both sides absorbed, and maybe they put that in different line in the invoice.
Mhm.
Then we've seen also a product traveling from China to another country's port to be shipped out. That happened, but again, that didn't last long because especially certain product obviously has a DNA stamped on it, and then you can't really tell where this product was coming from, whether food product and vegetable or edible or not. And most of the product had a DNA. Not to mention, you can track back also certain things and find out. So that didn't last long, as far as I know, and that wasn't a solution. But
Mhm.
two things were done to balance out their cost at the time. They came to a certain agreement with their own supplier. They both took a little cut and balanced out the lines of items, and per se, the items that didn't get much more tariff was on the invoice, and the other one part wasn't on the invoice, and it came out all right on the bottom line on the invoice. But is it the right way to do it? Of course not. But the second one was shipping from different ports. That did happen, definitely. That did happen, quite a bit of volume, but it wasn't a solution again. So they had to go back again because it was being sometimes more costly, expensive, and irregularity on the logistics of it, not shipping on time, missing the ship, missing the vessel. So there are other problems. Just you're bringing a solution, but also dealing with the other issues in the way from the start to getting to that port and to getting to the end of the country.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Robert, in one of your industrial companies, you have similar scenarios where you're shifting some of this invoicing to maybe fabrics versus steel, or
Yeah, so the way some of the codes are working is in particular with China, is some steel products are not getting the reciprocal tariffs, or a lot of the steel, so they're subject to the steel. They're subject to the IEEP, but they're not subject to the 125%. But we've got some products that we sell cargo straps and securement for flatbed trailers, and so there's steel and fabric in that product. And so, you know, back to the how complicated is this to actually put in place? You know, I guess that we're trying to figure out, can we weigh the product and so much is steel and so much is fabric and apply the tariffs across both? Which again, it just kind of comes down to people are trying to figure out what's going on. And you know, the challenge is if everybody does it equally and is getting the sourcing from the same place, it's all applied equally. But if somebody's figuring out a trick over here or where to classify their codes differently here to avoid some of the costs, now we're at a market disadvantage just because somebody's doing something different with their product. So back to your creativity point, if you can be creative, there's an opportunity to win, unfortunately, not because you're better at servicing the customer or better at, you know, delivering quality products. It's just price. You know, you figured out how to game the tariff system better. And the way the codes work, you know, and I'm a novice, so anybody's listening, take this for what it's worth, but not everybody applied their import codes the same. I mean, a product from the same product that, you know, any expert in an industry would say that's the exact same toy. You know, it's red and it's soft and it's stuffed, may have a different code, you know, depending on how they put it into the system, not thinking it would matter at any point. And now all of a sudden those codes really matter.
Yeah. Well, we have a client that manufactures joysticks, and when posed with the same question, he said, you know, I didn't earn my PhD not to be creative and figure out a solution to some of these challenges. So what they've done is they've allocated the larger percentage of the invoice towards the sign, and then the remainder to the actual product of those pieces that come into, that they have to import to assemble those joysticks. So the creativity always comes out during times of challenges. So that's always exciting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Robert, technology is often touted as a solution to supply chain disruptions. How do you see tools like AI, automation, and data analytics helping businesses manage the tensions caused by tariffs?
That's not something I've necessarily seen in practice currently. I mean, obviously to understand what's going on, I think just, you know, putting in what is the impact, how do I interpret all this, starting to try to triangulate all the information. You know, ChatGPT and some of that can be helpful just from an educational standpoint, trying to interpret the data and what's being put out there, because it's, you know, a pretty good aggregator. And you know, and then in terms of really of us helping understand our impact, we're using on our freight forwarders, and I don't know what technologies or not they're using to understand how this is all applied, but I mean, AI can certainly help scan the codes, know how they fit, what is your impact of your product and what are you going to need to pay on it. There's some applications there. You know, automation, I think, is probably the same trend as it has always been, is a potential cost out solution. You know, as costs are rising, using automation to reduce labor and potentially, you know, overall costs of executing an import strategy of, you know, I know Walmart and Amazon continue to do a lot of automation, especially in their warehouses now, where they're shipping and receiving products a lot more using robotics. But certainly going to be hard to offset 125% if that holds with you know, the Chinese product at least.
Another client that we're working with, what they've adopted a different sort of strategy is, if this product is subject to a 25% added increase in tariffs, rather than passing along that cost on that product line, they're spreading along amongst all of their product lines. So a small increase across versus a large increase just for a single product line, so that the consumer or the actual end user doesn't end up feeling that impact so significantly. So kind of a shared attempt to tariffs. So now with all these tensions and tariffs, Robert, are you looking at companies that Shorehill is looking to make acquisitions? How are you going about some of the due diligence?
Yeah, I think evaluating sourcing is obviously sourcing and where components are coming from, and that can be direct or sometimes indirect. And I think that I heard a process to last week actually that paused. They were looking for bids, and I think they're looking to evaluate the impacts, probably more complex than just a one-to-one, importing a finished good and where does that go? But in the industrial markets, there's a lot of components, and sometimes you may be one or two steps removed from the person that's bringing in products from overseas before you know it's there. So just understanding what's your exposure can be very challenging. So I think understanding the exposure and the impact is one piece of the diligence, and then how is it going to impact financial performance moving forward? So I think any business right now or business owner that's looking to sell needs to have a good handle or command over what their plan is, what the impact is, and how they're looking to mitigate it internally. And then, a demand side is always, that the economy is going to do what it's going to do, but, controlling what you can within your four walls and understanding it is what we're looking to do as we're diligencing businesses today. So,
Business owners have a real challenge in their hands now. Not only are they having to manage tariffs, in addition to the day-to-day business operations, whether that's sales, supply chain, employee-related items, HR issues. If a business owner is contemplating a sale, what are some of the things that you, Robert, would say, focus on these items? Because they will make you attractive.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know that it changes much with what's going on. My advice when people are, when we get on with owners all the time that aren't ready to sell, and we'll talk and just, what are you guys looking for? How do we increase value? How do we make, our business more attractive? It's, always going to be team and bench strength, in terms of your management, your organization, and is it, we call it one man band? Is it kind of, one person running the show, and, without that individual or direction, the business would struggle. And those are, we'll still look to businesses that operate like that and try to diversify, in the support with the partner post close. But it's always ideal to walk into a situation where the team knows what they're doing. They're thinking forward, as we call it, working on the business, not just in the business. Thinking about how to improve and how to get better versus just, kind of reacting to day-to-day situations. So team and brand strength is critical. And then I think, one thing we discussed is diversification, I think, and that's within your team, it's within your customers, your suppliers, anywhere you can look to try to have diversity of exposure. It will make your business more valuable and less prone to potential risks of, in this situation, it's great to have a diversity of country of origin,
Right.
Sourcing domestically, sourcing overseas. I mean, it's a great example of, forget the sale process, just running your business. Obviously, you want to have that diversity of supply chain. I was talking to one of my presidents yesterday about a supplier we have one supplier on a product line, and you don't mean you have to move away from your relationships, but having a secondary source in time
Or even a
challenge.
third source, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I think ultimately it's still going to be a global economy after this, and that's not going to change. So I think, long term, it's not as if people aren't going to continue to rely on the populations globally to make things and buy things. It's just, it's going to change and shift. And so, having that diversification is a critical one.
We're working with a client that is in the clothing manufacturing, design and manufacturing of clothing. And she had the foresight to see some of these changes coming up. So she started sourcing out of the Philippines, out of Malaysia, out of India, and Vietnam. And so she was very strategic about eliminating the dependency on China. A smart
The-
move.
the-
So
The
back to
irony is
working.
China has set up most of that manufacturing in those other countries.
Yeah,
It's but,
yeah. It's a different workaround, right?
yeah,
And for her, it's just having the foresight to diversify, to not just being one country dependent on your product, on the manufacturing. Mustafa, are you seeing amongst your competitors any consolidation or any talk of consolidation as you're feeling the pressures?
We are in two ways, and not consolidation just yet, but we have competitors with bigger fleets,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they employ more people, more drivers, and unfortunately, as we know, that not every truck's on the road today. Unfortunately, we want them to work all day, every day, but not every truck goes to job. So that's very unfortunate for doesn't matter my competitor or any other drayage. We all want to work, and it's a good competition. And then some other challenges we're seeing also. We're a service company, but on the other hand, we use trucks, we use truck parts, we use chassis, we use tires, rubber, and there's big volume of other origins tires in the market, not to mention big volume from China. So our costs also going up. U.S. We manufacture a lot of trucks in U.S. There's a big industry, but also we bring, as we talked about it maybe a little bit another time, and we still import steel, alloy, aluminum. So those are used in truck parts. We also bring some truck parts already ready manufactured elsewhere and imported to US. So all this also affects our industry cost-wise, and we just can't get away from it, and that will eventually drive our bottom line and our cost as well. It's inevitable, really.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
And so along comes also capital investments. You know, many of these companies have invested in equipment and now they're sitting idle. You know, what are some solutions that you would suggest?
Obviously, first thoughts are what else can I do with my equipment? Where else I can put them to work? And then, but unfortunately, or fortunately, for example, let's take Southern California. One every out of 10 people in Southern California is somehow related to logistics, anywhere from starting from dock workers to transportation, trucking, drayage, warehouse, deliveries, and all of the above. So 1 out of 10 works in somewhere in relation with logistics. So when volume goes down, when we have issues, those people's out of job. So we like to go put our trucks to work somewhere else in some other routes, maybe some other jobs. But when those jobs already slowing down, that kind of works against it and not possible to do, really. Can you change your market? Yes, but that takes time, and that's whole another clientele. It takes time. It's not overnight. It's gonna take just like my client manufacturer. If he's been building all 100% of his products in China somewhere else, and it's gonna take forever for him, for months and months and months, to bring all the tools here to US. to build that in U.S. and to be able to offer it to American customers. And same thing goes for us. We're not international. We're national here in local company, but it's not easy to change our market, unfortunately.
Right.
We were doing exports as well. For example, up until a couple of weeks ago, we had a client. We were doing exports for him, and ironically, that export was some sort of a textile from U.S. to China.
Oh,
When
that's ironic.
yeah, out of, I mean,
Yeah.
right? So, and all of a sudden, China retaliated against the big number of tariffs going up, and then they just stopped. They stopped.
Yeah.
They stopped the imports to their country. So that job was halted. So that was done, and then very unclear what's going to happen for this job. Probably not going to happen for a long time. We'll wait and see.
Yeah.
So those things happening on our end, in our industry.
And most of these things take time to make changes and implement changes, not only coming up with a strategy, but then actual the implementation process.
Yes.
Anything that you want to add to that, Robert?
No, it's just kind of I think the tentacles of what we're facing and how far reaching they are, and just it's going to play out, and there's going to be things and repercussions, good and bad, that we're going to see over time that will play out. So I think industries that may not have direct impact do, and they just don't maybe see it today, but it is there. And so that's the challenge of when you ask the diligence question, what we're trying to understand is you got to pull the string pretty far to make sure you understand where the exposure is and what's going on.
So when you talk about in the diligence process, and this is for some of our audience, if you own a business, you may be subject to those tariffs not knowing. You might be buying product from a vendor that's local and you think everything's being sourced here. So what level of diligence are you diving into, Robert, that really uncovers that impact of that?
Yeah, it's early. So right now, we've got a deal that we're getting close to putting a final offer letter out, and hopefully we'll win. And they've probably 20% of their product is directly sourced. There's probably more exposure, but it's one understanding, is the business able to pass price, or is this a business that's gonna, be exposed to alternative sourcing that is cheaper, or, at the rates, and lose its market share. So that's step one. And I think everybody's probably thinking about that now. If they're bringing something in, is it a paper plate, or is it, something differentiated where, we're able to maintain the market? Where is there alternative sourcing? Is there a lot of domestic sourcing, or is this an industry that's by and large overseas? The granularity, we haven't gotten to the level of looking at, at some point, I'm sure we'll look at all the procurement, country of origin by vendor, the products, if we were to buy a company, and get pretty detailed on the industrial side. And then, it's going to become a kind of what is the impact of the demand of the product as well, which is a little more art than science. In terms of trying to understand how is this going to play out over a 12-month period, because we always look for a 12 months of kind of normal operations, and some ideally 2 to 3 years where there isn't any big shocks, or how is the business performing. And so when you only have, what we got 3 weeks of of this current environment, it certainly makes it hard to understand what is normal and what it's going to look like 12 months from now.
Yeah, if I were to put on my appraiser's hat, right, and that's part of what our firm does as well. We do a lot of valuation work, whether it is for dissolutions or partnership dissolutions, or IRS, state tax planning. COVID was a period in time that impacted a lot of the businesses in the community, right? So using our appraiser's hat, we looked historically the past 3 years at those financials, then took the COVID year, and then did the forward projections once business started to resume. And we extrapolated that data under COVID and we footnoted it. And so we just ignored it. And, a lot of the businesses were impacted and businesses started to recover. And there was a lot of deal flow that followed post-COVID. For those audiences that are in the process of thinking 1 to 3 years, one of the things that we strongly suggest and recommend is that you start looking at your financials. Invest the time now to have them reviewed and work on doing some of the financial diligence that takes time. And now it's a good opportunity to tackle on that project. Robert, when you're looking at financials, would you agree you would be doing the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to the extent you think something's one time and not, pretty exotic and not normal, I think what the challenge with this time is, do these tariffs stick? Where do they go? What does the new normal look like in the trade, the trade arena? COVID was very exotic and unique, and it's how it cycled, and some businesses won big and some didn't, and kind of all over the board versus what is a normal economic cycle. But I don't know if there is a normal anymore. So you're kind of always dealing with something.
If we all had a crystal ball, right?
Yeah.
If all had the crystal ball. But I think the fundamentals don't change. Mustafa, you've been in the business world forever. What's one takeaway from the cycle that we're experiencing now?
I think in different forms, we all have been there before.
Yeah.
And then I'm confident we're going to ride the cycle. You can't panic in these situations. And then yourselves, Robert and ourselves, should pass on the message to the other people that panic is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
In a situations like that. I don't play market much, but the same thing goes with market. And some people would go attack and pull the money out. But again, that's not the strategy. Usually they would suggest, if you listen to the experts or professionals. Again, it's individual choice on that one. I shouldn't change the subject, but we've been there before in different formats, in different form, and staying calm, listening, and being one whole with your customers and people you work with, and hold hands. We'll go forward. We'll pull it out of that. I'm pretty confident on that one, and hopefully not too much scarf and bleeding. Let's hope.
I think some of us belong to trade associations. You belong to a trade association, Mustafa, right?
Right.
There's a brain thrust amongst the business owner community that collectively we can come up with some great ideas to navigate difficult challenges and uncharted waters. We've not seen tariff situation to this degree, but this too shall pass. And those that manage to stay calm and diversify and look to position themselves will come out ahead. Robert, if you had a magic desire, if you had the magic wand, the perfect business that Shorehill is looking to acquire, what are some of the elements that you focus on? And how does that translate to our audience as they're looking at their businesses of things that they can implement to make them more attractive?
Yeah, we always look for, there's no true kind of, patented or product or service that nobody else is trying to emulate or give in the market. But, we do look for differentiation, as we call it. And so it comes in a lot of shapes and sizes.
Mhm.
Your people, their level of service, how you execute. There may be something unique within your model that's a little different, be it technology or in logistics, may have a proprietary software that helps you schedule or coordinate a lot more efficiently, that then helps your people execute. So I think, looking at your competitors and how are you different? How do you win in the marketplace other than just price? Price
Price
always
is not a strategy, right?
it's not a strategy. It's always right. It's always going to be, in the questions, and sometimes we hire market studies, and they'll ask what are your purchasing criteria? Why do you work with this supplier? Why do you work with this company? And price is always somewhere on there. What you don't want is typically to be number one with all your customers. Then and maybe you're just more efficient, so you can price better and win that way. But I would argue that efficiency is why you're winning. Then you're a lot more efficient at what you do. So trying to figure out what small piece that's differentiated about your business and creates somewhat of a moat with your customers, and just trying to double down on that. I mean, if it's people, one of the things we look for, we use a tool called predictive index, which is a personality profiling kind of behavioral assessment. Very simple. It takes about 2 minutes to take, but it's very telling. And we'll do that with our salespeople, and then try to find other people that are like that fit that profile. So you're further building upon that, that top 2 or 3 salespeople, have them take it. And then when you're interviewing, you're looking for that trait. So it's little things like that I think can add up to a lot. I mean, there's a book called Blue Ocean Strategy that basically just says, all markets are, it's hard to distinguish yourself, but it is possible. You got to find your blue ocean where you're open to differentiate. And their example, which doesn't always apply, is Cirque du Soleil. If you had asked people 20 years ago about the circus, you'd say, I'm crazy for starting a circus. And now look where we are, Cirque du Soleil, right? They found a blue ocean. They found a different way to execute the circus model, but it's a circus nonetheless. So, I mean, it's small things that add up, and just identifying those, recognizing them, and trying to replicate them as much as possible.
Yeah. And, being in business, as long as we have seen and experienced the ups and downs of cycles. And in a recent conversation that you and I had, Robert, is if you are one of those unique businesses that are not experiencing the impact as large, as significant, and as a result of tariffs, and you are thinking of an exit in the next 1 to 3 years, and you're on your way up, when is the best time to sell, Robert?
Not at the peak. You definitely want to be at the top of the roller coaster, because I mean, what can happen, right? Is it by the time you decide to sell, how long does it take, Dora, do you think? By the time you say I'm ready to sell?
It's about a year process. Yeah.
And so,
6 months to a year, 6 months minimum, and it's about a year process.
yeah, so the best time to sell is when things are going right, and you see, hey, 12 months out, I'm going to be here, and it's pretty clear I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
You'll get the benefit of where you're going to some degree. You may not get every dollar, but you'll get a lot of the benefit, and you want to be selling on the up. The worst thing that happens is you get in, you decide to sell, and then 6 months in, things start to go down or sideways. And then you get a lot of questions. Well, why aren't you growing? Everybody's looking for growth. And so it becomes a challenge. And that's, we don't have a shot clock. Everybody asks us, when do you sell? And it's kind of like when you look around and everything's going really well, it might be a good time to, to get off the wagon, because rarely do industries, demand, your team, the operations, everything's clicking all at once. That rarely happens, as most small business owners probably know better than I do. There's usually, some issues going on.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Let me see, Galileo, do we have any other questions from the audience that we didn't address during this presentation?
We did get one question. What advice do you have for businesses planning an exit in a tariff-affected market? I think you guys hit most of the other ones pretty much during the presentation, but that one, if you guys could maybe expand a little bit on.
Maybe Mustafa, from your experience, and you're at the center of tariffs.
What's the question?
What advice do you have for businesses planning an exit in a tariff affected market? Dora, that might be you. That would probably be you as well.
Well, uh, I mean, I personally, as a businessman, I would just stay on my, in my direction and keep going keep doing what I'm doing, and maintain the integrity of the business and the my employees and equipment employees and as well as direction I'm going. I would just maintain that strongly.
Yeah.
If it was me, I'm
And
not.
look for efficiencies, right?
And again, certain some of us will still have to work. It's not like, oh my God, I'm bored and I can't I can't do it anymore. Let's sell. That doesn't work that way. Some of us have to work, and we all business owners have different ages, different energy, and some of us don't want to quit working. Some of us have plans maybe for 5 years, 10 years, but for the most part, that has to do with uh, age, and that has to do with what you expect from life, and that has to do with your lifestyle. But before anything, I think maintain your business on even keel together with your equipment employees and labor, and just make sure everything's working fine first. So you don't tip over just because there's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of talks, there's a lot of tariffs coming your way. Yes, we're gonna go through a storm here. We're gonna go through a windy season. That's for sure. We already are
We're in the eye of the storm.
in the winds, and,
Yeah.
and we're going towards a storm. But if you keep even keel, you'll go through that. And while you're going through that, like you said earlier, always have your eyes open, and like Robert says, just do your diligence. That's the time. And sometimes those times it gives you little alarm to think about further what you don't think on your normal life, everyday life, right?
Right. So one last thing is to think about partnering up with private equity is sometimes a great strategy. Robert, are there companies that you've co-invested in that you've taken maybe a majority interest, but the founding CEO is still there, and you're seeing an opportunity for exponential growth as a result of that acquisition?
Yeah, that's probably something I should have shared in our open. That's pretty much all we do, is look for like-minded partners that are seeking partial liquidity. So take a little chips off the table. I mean, having everything tied up in their business. They're generally not quite ready to retire and looking, for a partner to help, and they may transition through our ownership, may not, maybe in the next, 5 to 10 years, but roll anywhere from 20 to 40% into the new equity. So they're a 20 or 40% owner generally, and then look to, they either see growth opportunities that they can't support, with their checkbook anymore, and also have reached, kind of a ceiling of growth, and to get to that kind of next rung, you got to invest in the team and take some risk. And so that's, a lot of what we do. And it's worked really well. It's finding like-minded partners for us is critical. And then, I think sharing in that upside and reward as you grow is powerful. And then, one of the things I think we bring is just outside perspective. Some business owners may have advisory boards or industry associations they lean into for guidance, advice, what's going on. I mean, the nice thing about us is we see a lot across all of our portfolio companies. We share best practices. We try to bring a lot to bear other than just capital in terms of guidance, advice. But we're, in our situation, we're not operators, so we try to lean in and come up with the best ideas amongst everybody, the team included, and all align around those best ideas and go execute them.
Yeah.
And, I think the more people you have in the room that have ideas and can bring different thoughts, the better. Obviously, you don't want too many people, but
Yeah.
the right level and the right managed structure, it brings a lot of value because you're ultimately debating, everybody's debating, and everybody's giving their insight, and hopefully you land on the best decision.
And it's good synergistic brain thrust. And
Yeah.
with that, as a business owner, do it while you still have a lot of energy. Don't do it on on the last peak of your energy. You want to be able to capitalize with great partners. To that, we've come to almost the top of the hour, and I want to thank our presenters, Robert, Jackson, Mustafa, Altuner from thank you, gentlemen, for making yourselves available to our audience. We will follow up with Q&A that didn't get answered, and you will be receiving a copy of this recording. Until then, thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Yep, bye.